Hi everyone, my name is Kwamia Ross, and today I have a video that's pretty, intense. But in this video, I'm going to be exposing Ohio Guidestone for sexual abuse and other things. My son has been in Ohio Guidestone now since last May. So it's been over a year that he's been there. They put him in there at the end of May, towards June of 2020. He's been in foster care since February 14th of 2020. And the reason why I've been suspected the abuse for a while now, my son hasn't said anything to me, but I've been looking at his behavior and the behavior of certain staff who have been encountering my son or are very close with my son. I've been suspecting things for a long time. The Holy Spirit has been urging me and revealing things to me. I've been praying, and my son has been trying to run away. He's been going AWOL. He actually went AWOL probably about 3 or 4 times since he's been at Ohio Guidestone. His most recent attempt at running away, he actually was successful at it and was gone for a few hours. Was about a week or two ago, and he always says he wants to go home. He's been coming to me saying he wants to, hurt himself. Sometimes he feels like he wants to end his life. He seems very emotional and very angry and upset. And when I look at him, he looks like a shell of his former self. And I've asked him, I said, what's going on? He really can't really tell me. Imagine a child in a situation where there is no one else out on the outside that can help them. This Ohio Guidestone is a closed facility. It's very locked in. Even when I go visit with my son, he used to have community visits, but they revoked that. And I visit with him in the building where the children are, and they have it locked. You can't get out. One of the staff have to let me out when I'm ready to leave. You can't get out at all. And not only that, it's like you can't really say anything. These children are intimidated. They have no one to advocate for them. So if they want to talk about any abuse that's going on, there's no one they can turn to because they're in this locked in situation. If they talk with their parents on the phone, it's like they're surrounded by everyone. Or, even when things are brought up, they're retaliated against. Nothing happens. I've approached and encountered the director, Megan, on numerous occasions, and whenever I speak out about certain situations, my son gets retaliated against. The staff starts treating him a certain way. So nothing gets resolved. It's just the children are retaliated against. Now, I want to talk about the sexual abuse. When my son first got to the cottages back in the end of May, he was in one of what they called, they had placed him into quarantine because it was when COVID first was going on. And Children and Family Services had my child move from one group home to another one because they claimed he was intellectually delayed and he had a very low IQ and, he wasn't adequate. The Christian, he was at Cleveland Christian Home. They said it wasn't suitable for him, which I felt they should have, researched before putting him there. But this is how they do things. And so after him being there for like almost 2 months, they moved him to Ohio Guidestone. And when he was there, he was placed into a quarantine cottage, and I would call there. I mean, they said I can call anytime because he wasn't in school or anything like that because he's in quarantine. And I would call, and no one would ever answer the phone. I would call several times, no one would answer the phone. And I would ask like, well, what's going on? And they say, oh, he's at the cottage or he's outside playing basketball. And I always had my suspicions because, to me, it just didn't make sense. And one time, I guess it was Thomas Cummings, who was his first encounter. He told me himself he was the one who was there with my son when he first I got placed into the emergency cottage, and he seemed to speak highly of my son. And I always know this man was always around him. Now, he would come to me and tell me that he told me himself out of his own mouth that Desmond, my son, is his favorite. I don't know what he meant by that. He just said that's his favorite. He was going to take him fishing. He's going to be with them. Now, a lot of this brings a lot of, red alarms and up in my head when things are said like this. No parent wants to hear that, some strange man or some grown adult man somehow has grown attached to their child and you don't know the reason why. Now, after visiting my son for a few times, I guess this man felt comfortable enough to come to me, and I've been holding this for a while. He presented my son with a jersey. Now, what's so intimate about this? This isn't a jersey he bought for my son. This is his own jersey that he used to wear on his own back that he got from home. He told me himself. I have the hanger, the still original hanger and everything he gave me. Thomas Cummings came to me while I was in a conference meeting, a therapy meeting session with my son. And he came up to me and said, you know what? I'm going to give this to him. I don't want the other kids to get jealous. I want to give it to him while he's here. And this is Thomas Cummings' old jersey. Now, to me, it's a big deal because I don't like my son accepting gifts from no one, especially another grown adult. And the thing about that is that why are you giving my son preferential treatment? Why are you singling him out? And why are you just giving him something? It's not like the staff took all the kids out and gave them all shirts or T-shirts or bestowed them with this, these jerseys. I wouldn't have a problem with that if it was done together. But you come alone and do something completely, off to the side and say, "Oh, I got this jersey." Not only was it, your own jersey, okay? It's not a brand new jersey. It's a jersey that you wore on your own back. It's a jersey that you brought from home to give to my son. So, this jersey again, I suspected, I kept it. I said, "You know what?" I said, "That's not appropriate." I told the therapist at the time who was conducting the session, said, "I don't feel that's appropriate. Does that always happen that they give, single out children, give them preferential treatment?" And I felt it was very inappropriate. So I told my son, "You know what? I'm not going to let you have that jersey. I don't want you accepting gifts from anyone." And so I took the jersey home and I said, "I'll keep it." And I kept it because, I was waiting to the right moment to bring forth all of this information. The thing is with Ohio Guidestone, there's no accountability. In most places, there is a chain of command or someone you can go to if there's an issue, and usually things will get resolved if there's something. With Ohio Guidestone, everyone kind of hides everything that's going on. They cover for each other, and you go to people, the manager or the director, or you can go file a complaint or a grievance with someone. There's really no accountability. They might say, "Oh, so and so mentioned this," but I've never seen really any type of repercussions or anything like that to end this behavior. Now the thing is with these people have been working with the company for a long time. So they feel they can get away with it. They probably have gotten away with a lot of things. Now what concerns me is the fact that my son's behavior has been becoming erratic. A lot of them, even his therapist has said that his emotions go from up and down. One minute he's sad, one minute he's okay, he's getting angry, he's sensitive over the littlest things. And recently my son came to me and told me about a staff member there by the name of Mr. Scott, who's been antagonizing him. He says that Mr. Scott tells him, "You're going to end up in jail. Your father's in jail. You're going to be just like your father and go to jail." Now these are Caucasian men who are talking down to vulnerable black children who are in, this rehabilitation facility. That's what they call it, but they treat it more like a prison. Like I said, everyone's on lockdown there, and the children, get punished pretty much like they're in a jail. And this is the place where Cuyahoga County has sent my son. They have sent him to something that's just pretty much like a prison training. And my son said it himself that this man, Mr. Scott, has called it himself. He said that they're preparing them for prison. That came out of his own mouth. And he tells the kids, "Go in your cells. When it's time for them to go to bed, go in your cells." Making them feel, just destroying their self-esteem and putting them down. Now let's get back to the sexual abuse. My son had problems sleeping. They told me he had problems sleeping. He's been very erratic, having problems sleeping at night. When I visit with him, oftentimes he smells like, feces. And that means he's not taking showers. I talked to my son actually to take a shower. Sometimes he says no. And I know my son's defense mechanism, because he was abused as a small child by his own biological father, who I filed police reports against, and police failed to investigate. I tried to keep him away from him. I moved him out of his life. And of course, Children and Family Services reintroduced him back to his father. He's not seen him in person yet, but he has been having FaceTimes with him through Children and Family Services conducting these FaceTime visits. So my son had a history in the past of being sexually abused, and I noticed his behavior and how he acted. Then he was very angry. He had to get therapy and counseling. He was very angry. He was very emotionally distressed, and his emotions were very imbalanced, and he would just blow up over the smallest things. And that's how he is right now. He's at the point where he's been trying to run away. Now I'm going to bring up, before I talk about Mr. Scott, I'm going to bring up what I have. I looked on the website. I'm going to post this up here. I went to the website mayoclinic.org, where it says, I looked at the symptoms of children who are abused. Now, there are all types of forms of abuse. There's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, neglect, medical abuse, and all these things. So it talks here about children who have been abused, where you could see these things. It says here the symptoms for a child who's been abused, they may feel guilty, ashamed, or confused, and may be afraid to tell anyone about this abuse. Now, especially if the abuser is a parent, other relative, or family friend. Now, it says it's vital to watch for red flags, such as these are the red flags, and this is on mayoclinic.org's website. It says the red flags and symptoms are withdrawal from friends or usual activities, changes in behavior, such as aggression, anger, hostility, or hyperactivity, or change in school performance. Now, this stood out to me because my son's behavior, like they said, sometimes he's very angry. When I'm with him, I've seen him, when I went to visit him at Ohio Guidestone, he got so angry that he threw a basketball against the wall. He went and ran into the gym and started hitting things because he was so angry and upset. And all all we said was he couldn't go to his community visit. But he blows up over the smallest issues now. And it's like his emotions are very irrational and erratic, and they're hard to control and stabilize. Now, it also talks about depression, anxiety, or unusual fears, or a sudden loss of self-confidence. Now, when I see my son, like I said, they said that he has lots of bouts of sadness. There's periods of sadness. This has been said by a staff member as well as one of the therapists who closely works with my son. And this all has happened over, the past couple months or few months. Now, there's another one here where it talks about attempts at running away. The reason why I want to bring up this one here is because my son, they said he went AWOL. Now, if a child is being abused in a situation, in an environment where he feels there's no one to help them, where he can't tell anyone, this place is a closed facility. The parents really don't have any access. Like I said, everything goes and no one can get inside to do anything. There's no accountability being held. So my son has actually successfully ran away from this place more than once. And I talked to the caseworkers before about it, that, maybe it's not a good fit, and they don't care. They didn't seem to get him out. Even when he got stabbed in his neck, there was another child who assaulted my son. They had gotten into a verbal altercation, and this child, who was a Caucasian boy, by the way, he stabbed my son in the neck with some type of metal or wooden object, and he had I'll post a picture, he has a long mark on his neck. It healed, but it's still a long scar on the side of his neck. This was allowed to happen, and there was no intervention as far as the police or anything like that. Now, when I talked to her about that, when that incident occurred, they claimed that they were going to move my son out of there, and they're supposed to be getting him out in May. But then the caseworker turned around and said, "Oh, we're going to go to court. We have to wait till August." So basically, they kept my son in an environment where he apparently was not safe and he was being physically harmed. So he attempted to run away several times. And every time he runs away, he gets more consequences. Now, he recently went AWOL. They call it AWOL when he leaves the premises, and they revoked our community visits. This is the only thing my son was looking forward to that actually kept him going, because I could come to the cottage and pick him up and take him away from the cottage. They keep them there all day like prisoners. They don't really get to go anywhere, rarely. The kids are there every day, all day, and I ask my son what he does. They watch TV or play basketball and go to group therapy. Like I said, that's a prison. Imagine a 14-year-old child in this type of environment, and especially children with cognitive disabilities and delays. My son was supposedly sent there because of cognitive delays and had a low IQ, but you put him in a situation, in an environment where he's subjected to abuse and treated like a prisoner. So he ran away. He's been running away. And this is like the third time. It talks here on the website, when a child is being faced with these abuses and they're being abused, they run away. But Ohio Guidestone, they don't do anything. No one investigates the staff. They pretty much can do what they want, especially those who've been there 20 and 30 years. The man who gave my son the jersey, who claimed that he's his favorite, was there for 30 years or more. And the Mr. Scott man, who I spoke to actually today, we had a conversation. I try not to, I try to deal with it a different way. I can't really confront him because my son is still in this atmosphere, and I don't want my son being retaliated against in a way where I can't come to his defense. And that's why I feel like right now, a parent who's defenseless and my kids are, at the mercy of these wicked people who are around there who do not care a thing about them. These children are pretty much just paychecks, their money. The director, the vice president, she doesn't care. I heard that the vice president's trying to send these kids to a closed, locked-in facility where everything is locked. The bathrooms will be locked. Everything will be locked. And how is this, how is this safe for the children? What if the children are being abused inside? Where's the accountability? No one can get inside. No one knows what's going on. No one investigates. These people are at the liberty to do whatever they want to do to these vulnerable children who have already probably been abused. A lot of them have gone through emotional problems at home. And now they're in this situation where they're vulnerable children who are exposed to this. And there's no one to help them or advocate for them or protect them at all. Now, I believe also that Mr. Scott has abused my son because my son does not seem to feel comfortable around him. I watched engaged behavior. I noticed Mr. Scott, he told me that Desmond, my son, is his favorite also. My son Desmond is his favorite. Now, he told me out of his own mouth the same thing that Thomas Cummings has said. He said that he likes Desmond. He's a good boy. But he also says my son sits up at night. He's one of the last ones to go to bed. So when he goes to bed, he says he goes by his room with the light, flashes the flashlight, and goes in and talks to him. So that brought up a red flag to me that now you're alone with my son at night when everyone else is sleeping, and you're up talking with him, and who knows what else is going on. My son's not going to tell me the truth. For one, like I said, especially with male children who are being abused, they feel a sense of shame. They feel shame as if their masculinity has been taken from them. And my son, when the things happened with his father, it took a long time for him to acknowledge it. He still gets very angry, doesn't want to acknowledge it because he feels like, he told me, he said, "Oh, I'm not gay." I said, "You know what happened to you? You were a small child. That was not your fault." And even if, I don't know, there's different forms of sexual abuse. Someone can manipulate someone into doing things or allowing them to do things. It doesn't necessarily have to be rape. And, that's what I feel is going on. But my son, he won't talk about it. He looks very afraid, like when he did confide in me about the things that were said to him about, them telling them, "Oh, you're going to go to prison, you're going to go to jail just like your dad," and all this and that. And when I wanted to speak to this man, he said, "No," he looked at me like, "What are you doing?" Like he was afraid. So I left it at that. I didn't really go into detail about everything because I, again, want my son to be safe. I don't want anyone retaliating against him. And these are the type of people you're dealing with. If you speak up and confront them about it, they'll retaliate instead of trying to rectify the issue. And so this is the situation. I'm bringing it forth now because it's like, I don't want my son to die. I don't want him to kill himself. I don't want something seriously bad to happen to him. And I feel like my son is like a fragile shell. And if this is happening to him, I can't imagine how many other children this is happening to. We know about the history of how Caucasian men used to attack, black boys and abuse them and rape them. And we're dealing with two Caucasian males preying on an impressionable and vulnerable black young youth. And it's not just about race here. But the thing is, this is where we get into, the privilege, the white privilege. I know that there is racial discrimination at Ohio Guidestone because of the simple fact. When I was first told that I would get visits with my son, community visits, I was told that he would have overnight visits, meaning he would be allowed to come to the house and spend a night with his family. But they changed it and turned around completely to something about I get to visit with him out in the community for 4 hours, but he couldn't go home. I asked my son, did any of the other children get community visits and get to go home? He says, he doesn't really know. A couple of them went to visit, but they didn't get the overnight passes. The only two children who are getting overnight passes are Caucasian boys. They get to go home with their families. But the black males who are there, it's majority black children there, they don't get to go home. They don't get to have these overnight visits or be with their family. So I see that the bias is there. And just like when my son got stabbed in the neck, it was a Caucasian boy who stabbed him and assaulted him. Nothing was done about that. And so when you're dealing with people who have underlying issues with racism, and they see black males as inferior, just like this man, Mr. Scott, tells my son, "Oh, he's going to be in jail. He's going to end up just in jail like his father." That shows the mindset that you have towards black people. It shows the mindset that you're having towards these children, that you feel comfortable enough to say this to another child. And I asked him about that. He says, oh no. He tried to make it seem like he didn't really deny it, but he made it seem like, oh, my son's a good boy, and oh, he likes him so much. But the issue is what you said. The issue is what he said to my son. The issue is what he's doing to him. The issue is my son does not feel safe, and he will not tell me because he will not speak out because he feels shame. I know my son. He feels shame, but I can tell when something's wrong. My son looks like he's been beat down. He looks like he's been broken. And that's why I know something's going on. Why is a child so angry and sad and hurt and feeling depressed and wanting to run away and attempting to run away and seeking out, They said my son had a black and mild when he ran away last night. Why is he trying to go to drugs? These are all symptoms and signs of when children are being abused. And instead of Children and Family Services protecting my kids, they took them out of my home where they were safe and put them in a group home and don't care. There's no accountability. They're not doing anything. They don't check up on these children. They don't go there and spend time with them and see what's going on. Ohio Guidestone is free to do whatever they want to these kids. The parents don't have any authority. They don't know what's going on. And this is why I'm speaking up, because people like me, I'm not the only one in the situation. People who are like me, vulnerable women with no power, parents with no money, no influence or anything, they feel they can do whatever they want to them. And I'm bringing this forward because, you know what, it's very inappropriate when a man gives a gift to another child. It's inappropriate when a man goes by a child's room at night and speaks to him alone when everyone else is sleeping. And my son is getting abused, and I know it. He can't tell me. He can't confide in me and tell me the truth of what's happening because he's in denial, because he's ashamed and embarrassed and humiliated. I think about all those children when it happened in Pennsylvania a few years ago, when it came out and it was exposed about the popes and everything were abusing the children. How long do children have to be abused before someone speaks up and says something? Ohio Guidestone needs to be investigated by the FBI, along with Children and Family Services and all these other group homes and these rehabilitation facilities where they have it locked up and the children do not have access to the world and no one else has access to go inside and freely see what's going on. There is no accountability for anyone. When I went to visit my son one time and they weren't answering the phone, I asked the director, why aren't they answering the phone? And she says, oh, I can pull up everything on the camera here. But do you have access to the cameras that are inside the children's bedrooms? And if you did see something, will you tell the truth? I confronted her one time when my son told me one of his friends was assaulted and raped in his own bedroom by another boy. She looked me right in my face and denied it, but I found it. I looked it up and I found it in a newspaper on a website that it actually happened. So Ohio Guidestone does not hold accountability. They hide things and cover it up. There is no level of, there is no transparency at all. Things are allowed to happen. And I feel like at this point, I'm doing what I can to speak out because I'm an advocate for my son as a parent. And I also want to help, if I can, use my voice to help save other children who are being abused and destroyed. Like I said, there are people who've been there in these privileges, these positions, and they have all this authority because they've been on the job for decades. And they're getting away with doing these things to children. Children are being abused and no one can speak up and say anything. Now, I don't know if there's someone out here. I'm just asking those who are, the saints to pray. And if there's someone who has any type of legal knowledge or any type of legal authority or power, if you could just reach out to me and let me know. Or give me some tips on what to do. That'd be great. And share this video, please. Thank you.